All right, John. Hey, listen, we're jumping on today because we want to talk a little bit about something that I've been seeing as something that's really being a big issue in my world as a loan officer and people that are buying homes for numerous reasons. I also know that you're getting phone calls left and right. People are getting envelopes in the mail talking about their homeowners insurance, and their homeowners insurance have been rising. And we know everything's going to rise eventually, but it feels like this is at a larger rate. Can you give me the basic idea of like how and why uh, our homeowners insurance costs are going up right now?
Yeah, there's really kind of four key factors. I mean, it's a big question. There's lots of different things that are impacting rates right now, but one of the four, probably the main ones. Increased frequency and severity of natural disasters. So, the number of claims that we're experiencing, not just in the United States, but kind of globally, but, the number of those claims and the increased severity or the cost of those claims.
Right.
So the more claims and the more expensive things are to have to, replace vehicles, replace homes, repair homes, those sorts of things. That's certainly one of the largest contributing factors that
So are you
insurance
are,
companies are.
and can I is that meaning that basically the same reason like milk's more, everything costs more, the wood, everything they need to fix whatever it is to replace your car, all those costs go up, and that's one of those factors that's kind of pushing things up on homeowners.
Yeah, absolutely, and that kind of brings up the second one, which is just rising construction and repair costs. So,
Yeah.
so if you're having more claims and they're costing more money, what's driving that? Well, an increase in construction and repair costs for the homeowners companies. Because when you have a claim, then they're contractually obligated to come in and address those issues, and it's more expensive for them. And then the inflationary piece not only impacts the rising construction and the rising repair costs, but the cost of doing business for insurance companies. So, they're not immune to having to spend more for, not only for salaries to keep up with inflation that, the average consumer experiences just when they go to the grocery store.
Right.
So rising salary, rising, commercial property prices, all of those things that contribute to just what an insurance company needs to operate. So, those are three big components. So frequency and severity of natural disasters, rising construction and repair costs, and then obviously just inflationary pressure. And then, a little known fact is that insurance companies have insurance. So in order to be financially stable as an insurance company, you have to purchase insurance to kind of offset your expenses and offload a little of that risk to someone else. And those
Mhm.
premiums, those premiums are really at all-time highs. I mean, historic highs for insurance companies. So, and all of those things, trickle down and get, kind of passed down right to the consumer. Um, and and then from there, if you want, that's kind of the macro level stuff that's happening to the insurance companies. But on the
Mhm.
micro level, people are people that have claims in their past, or maybe a
Mhm.
subject property. So maybe the house that you're buying has had a claim previously, and insurance companies deem that property to be a higher risk. Well, they're going to adjust the premium for that house. A lot of people used to think, well, if I don't have any claims, then I'm okay.
I'm good.
Yeah, but on the homeowner side, if that home you're purchasing has had claims previously, not only can it result in higher rates, but for some carriers, they may not want the risk at all. Um, you
So
know,
that's kind of what we talked about. One of the reasons why we wanted to kind of put this little episode out is there are like some of these houses are like homeowners insurance landmines,
yeah,
and you don't know what you're getting into. Like you said, you might be golden, but that house might have a history, and that's why I think it's an important reason to make kind of a public plea to everybody is we do a lot to get pre-approved. We do a lot to find out. I mean, I know people that call the electric company to see what's the average bill on this house. What's this? Homeowners insurance needs to be right up there with, getting a pre-approval, making sure that you can buy the house. I think the second call needs to be, let's call John, get a quote on this, because you might be walking into a monster.
Yeah, and it was challenging during COVID because some people, in order to put an offer on a house, they couldn't wait for insurance
Right.
quote. I mean, if you wanted to buy a house and you had multiple competing offers, then that was going to be a challenge to wait for that. I mean, that house may be under contract by the time you start to get some quotes back. But now we're in an environment with higher interest rates and less competition for homes, where you do have a
Right.
little more time. You can take some time and try and holistically evaluate the property and make sure that you're not going to go under contract on a house that you're either not going to be able to get insurance for, or the premium is going to be so significant that your loan doesn't qualify, whether it's debt to income or cash to close, or those things that can kind of throw a deal out the window. So when I talk to my real estate partners and my lending partners, we have this conversation all the time. I encourage them to get on the insurance aspect of the home buying process as quickly as possible, to include, if you've got a pre-approval in your hand and kind of what your buying power is.
Yeah.
It's really important that if you see a house that you like, don't assume that
Yeah.
that you're just going to be able to get insurance on it and rock and roll. Engage with an insurance professional. Let them go through and run some reports and take a look at some things to see what the history is on that home.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I think, yeah, the earlier in the process you can begin that, the better.
Yeah, because we mentioned this before, is when I am doing your pre-approval, when you call me and we're looking at your numbers, we used to safely be able to say, a certain percentage, right, based on what state you're in, where I could do a pretty decent estimate, and we usually would hit. Well, uh, we're not hitting that same number, so you and I have had a little bit of a learning curve, or whatever you want to call it, where I'm I am having to now increase that estimate on homeowners more than I think it would be. But most of the time, if I am showing you an increased amount on that, then it's probably coming in at that. And that makes a big difference for several reasons. Is if you're not doing that, then if let's say your debt to income is right there, right at the line, and your lending person, or realtor, whoever that is, kind of giving you an estimate, if you're looking at houses thinking, okay, this one's 1,500 a month based off of what everybody's telling me, you go under contract and you come back, next thing you know, you go get your homeowner's insurance quote, and like you said, you didn't know that property had a history on it. And so instead of a $2,500 annual premium, you might be looking at $5,000. Well, that's a humongous difference. Number one, your payment's going to be a lot more. Number two, you might not even qualify for that house anymore. And it does increase your closing costs. You may not have enough to cover it.
Sure.
So all of that is extremely, extremely important. And it's something that really needs to be getting looked at very, very early in the process, because it's a huge factor. And debt to income ratios are typically high. In most cases, the first time home buyer, specifically, and that can change in a heartbeat if you're picking the wrong house. So this leads me to the next question, which is, all right, what can I do to lessen that burden, or to lessen what that hit is? How can somebody, the average Joe, whether maybe on two fronts, is the current homeowner who got that letter in the mail, right? They went up. And then that person that's going out looking at homes. If you could kind of tell me, what do each one of those people need to do to try and maybe shave a little bit off of those numbers to bring that down a little bit?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is shop. Look around. You may have been, you may have had a relationship with an agent that is, like a captive agent, and that's just an agent that really only has access to one or maybe a couple different companies.
Right.
And they're essentially, beholden to those companies. They can't, they can't really shop you with multiple companies. And, we're in an environment where the more options you have available to you, the more likely you're going to find a rate that is within the budget that you're trying to hit.
Hmm.
So I think that's really important, not only for existing home buyers, but for new home buyers. So don't just go with the first quote you get, and understand what your budget is, and if you have some flexibility, because you may have to go on the higher end, to make the loan work, for new home buyers. For new home buyers, I would say, and this to some extent impacts existing homeowners, but for new home buyers especially, you always want to go into the home buying process with the best profile, the best purchasing profile possible. So not only do you want to make sure that you've got your assets in order, that you can provide your work history and all those sorts of things, but credit. Obviously, credit not only impacts your interest rate, but it's a huge component of risk assessment for a homeowner's insurance company. And
That's
a
right.
lot of people think that that the homeowners insurance companies are looking at your credit score, and your credit history, specifically for payment reasons. They want to make sure that you make your payments on time. Really has
Fair.
nothing to do with that. Insurance companies are always looking for ways to evaluate risk, and we are in a data-rich world. And what the data tells insurance companies about credit score is that people that have higher credit scores have fewer claims,
Hmm.
and of those claims are typically there's less severity, meaning they cost less. So higher credit score has a direct correlation to lower claims, and so that's a less risky potential client. So making sure that you are doing everything you can to maintain a high credit score is really, really important.
Hmm.
This also applies to existing and prospective home buyers, is bundling. You hear that term thrown around all the
Okay.
time. Uh, Combining your homeowner's insurance with another line of coverage. Traditionally, it's auto,
Hmm.
but finding carriers that offer both,
Hmm.
or finding a carrier that offers a discount, a bundle discount, even if they don't sell auto. Because there are some companies that, let's say, for this is really more specific to an independent agent, someone like myself, where if they don't have that product, but they still want to incentivize someone using you as a homeowner's insurance, what they'll do is they'll offer a bundle discount as long as you choose an auto carrier that my agency offers. So
Wow.
if I put you with the homeowners carrier and they say, okay, well, you can choose whichever auto company you want, we'll give you a bundle discount as long as you buy that homeowner or that auto policy from the same agent.
I see.
And so that's kind of a unique option that a lot of people don't necessarily know about. um, and then, deductibles is a big thing in
Mhm.
Oklahoma. We're seeing, traditionally people would have a 1% wind and hail deductible.
Right.
And we're seeing a lot of carriers move away from that. They're increasing what their minimum deductible can be for wind and hail. And, a lot of companies are going to 2%. And that percentage is based on your replacement cost. So if whatever the insurance company says it's going to cost to prospectively replace your home, reconstruct your home, that wind and hail deductible is going to be a percentage of that. Usually, 1%, 2%. We have carriers that are going to 3% in Oklahoma. So if you look at that in terms of, if you've got a $500,000 replacement cost on your home, and you've got a 3% wind and hail deductible, you have baseballs fall out of the sky and damage your roof, you're paying $15,000 out of pocket, in order to get that roof replaced. So you could potentially be paying for a majority of the roof on your own.
Even though
But
you're paying for insurance.
yeah, yeah,
Well, that's rough.
it's the most predominant risk that we have in Oklahoma. It
Yeah.
is the number one type of claim that you have. So obviously, from an insurance carrier standpoint, the best way for them to, kind of incentivize you to having a higher deductible is to have a lower premium. So there is a gamble there. And so if your premiums are going up, and let's say you have shopped, you've looked in the market, you've contacted agents, and your current insurance company is still the most competitive, then you may look at increasing that wind and hail deductible, because that is going to impact your premium more than almost any other component of your premium, is increasing that wind and hail deductible. But it's not without its own risks. So you do have to, kind of weigh do I want to spend a little bit more for my homeowner's insurance and maintain that lower deductible, or
Right.
do I raise that deductible and try and reduce my monthly payment? So, and that's just the game that we have to unfortunately play in Oklahoma right now. But again, I think good credit, again, shopping early, understanding what the history is on that house.
Right.
Before you sometimes before you even put in an offer, because that may be a decision, making aspect of, whether or not you even put in an offer on a house. If you know that it's had a couple water claims in the last few years, that's going to really impact not only the premium, but it's also going to impact maybe the number of carriers that are even willing to, to write the risk.
And a lot of times your home inspection, like, we always tell somebody, for your protection, get a home inspection. Sometimes that some of these things will come up, but these are
Sure.
things you need to know, right? So like that leads me to one other question, just a couple little tips that you might think to, let's say that somebody's listening to you right now and they're like, all right, I'm hearing you, but I'm going to go look at houses. I don't know what is what. What are a couple of things about the house that I'm looking at that I can see and that I can find out without getting a quote? What do I need to look for that I know is, hey, that's something that'll help on the insurance side?
Yeah, so there's really there's really kind of four things that homeowners insurance companies, that they focus on. So the age and condition of the roof.
Okay.
Newer roof that's in good shape is typically going to yield a better premium.
Okay.
So insurance
What's
companies
new?
like new
What's
roofs.
newer considered?
Less than 10 years.
Okay.
There's a lot of companies right now that if the roof is older than 10 years, they won't offer replacement cost. There's a few companies that won't even insure the house. They literally won't even provide insurance for the home if the roof is older than 10 years. So age of roof, if it's within 10 years, then that's going to be, important to
That's
try
a
and
good thing.
find.
That's a good thing.
It is, and what's astonishing is how many people are putting in offers on homes that have no idea how old the roof is. One of the first things I do if I get a quote in is I'm reaching out to that listing agent and I'm asking them, how old is the roof?
Okay.
And it's rare, unless the roof was recently replaced, and that's kind of a selling point that the
Right.
realtor is trying to leverage, and in the negotiation, that they even know.
Yeah.
And without fail, I'll pull up the Zillow, and that's one of the most important things in Oklahoma is how old's the roof.
Yeah.
It's not even listed in the Zillow description of the property.
But
And
see, now you make a good point there, because that is now becoming, when we talk about Zillow, you see, hey, it's got, new bathroom and the kitchen's redone. That's awesome.
yep,
But that we need to be advertising is, we have a roof, if you have brand new roof or a roof within a certain amount of years, because if people are getting educated like you're telling them now about, here's some of the pitfalls that you can try to avoid on a house, the one of those selling points now, if you're educated on it, is if you look in that listing, it says something about, hey, the roof's only 5 years old. You go, okay, perfect.
yep,
I like that. That's a good
yep,
thing. Let me keep reading.
yep.
And so, I make a plea to anybody listing a home is, let's get that info out there, because this insurance thing is becoming a real thing that's going to make or break deals. So
Yeah.
what are some other things that they can look for?
Yeah, so roof, HVAC. So having a new furnace is good. Having new air conditioning unit, those things are for some carriers are important, um, and obviously plumbing. So if you've got an older home, and let's face it, Oklahoma's got a lot of older homes.
Mhm.
New construction is on the rise for sure, but there are a lot of markets in Oklahoma where the average home price or the average home age is 30, 40 years old.
Yeah.
For those homes, those are inherently risky, and I think a lot of people just assume that, well, it's an older home and I'm not paying that much for the house, that my insurance is going to be really, really cheap on this. But if you think of it in terms of risk, so if you have galvanized steel and cast iron plumbing, well, those are they're going to corrode and rot, and they're going to fail. Eventually you will have a water related claim as a result of that type of
Well, let me ask you this then, because that stuff I don't think about, if I'm being honest with you. And I think that's good. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to jump on here and throw this out, is because I don't think about these things. I don't think the average Joe does either. So, I mean, if I'm looking at a house, how am I supposed to know if there's, what the piping is, and like, how do I mean, like, I'm hearing you, but like, how do I know?
Yeah, a big factor on those, again, is really more specific to older homes where they're going to have a higher likelihood of having these types of materials in them.
Mhm.
Is a lot of those homes are crawl space. Look
Okay.
under the crawl space.
Right.
See what's under there, if at all possible. If that's not something you're willing to do, then a home inspection. Home
Right.
inspection. They're gonna flesh out a lot of those kind of hidden things, and you'll have an opportunity to kind of see what the guts of the home are. Look under the sinks. I mean, that's the easiest way. If you're seeing, PVC, PEX, plastic materials, then that's good.
Okay.
You're going to have you're less likely to have a failure. They are cheaper to replace and to fix. And so, yeah, look under those sinks, and take a look at those things. And so that's a pretty quick way to kind of understand, maybe how recently the plumbing has been updated on the property. And then really from there, the electrical system is really going to be a key component too, especially for older homes. There are some circuit breaker manufacturers that are, that insurance companies are not going to insure your property if you have them in your home. And, one of the things I think a lot of people have grown accustomed to is just exterior inspections by home insurance companies. So
Okay.
when you close on that house, eventually, usually within a few weeks of closing, you're going to have the insurance company is going to send out somebody to come out and do an inspection on the home.
Okay.
Those are almost always going to be exterior inspections, but
Okay.
a lot of companies are using app-based inspections, and you know they're doing that so that they can get inside the house without being too intrusive. You don't want somebody just walking into your house. So what better way to do it than to have someone walk around with their phone and take pictures, and they're guided tours essentially of the house. So they're going to have you get under your sinks. They're going to have you go take a look at the water heater and go look at the furnace. They're going to have you, look at the interior, materials that are used inside the house. And if those things reveal risk concerns, then what we're experiencing in Oklahoma a lot right now is those insurance companies are using those interior inspections and coming back and saying, hey, you have a General Pacific circuit breaker on your home. Well, General
Mhm.
Pacific was notorious for having house fires. They're not something you want in your home.
Okay.
And there's a lot of insurance companies that will not insure your home with that manufacturer of a circuit breaker, and
Huh.
and they will send you a cancellation notice. So you've just closed on your house. You've gone
Right.
through all of the things necessary to get the keys to the property, to include getting an insurance policy. And then within 30 days, you get a cancellation notice from the insurance company. And then you're right back to square one, unless you pay the out of pocket expenses to get those things, remediated. So those are some things that you can do in advance of that. So knowing those things, knowing the condition and the type of plumbing system that's in it, knowing the electrical system, trying to find out when it's been updated, and the age and condition of the roof, the age of the furnace. Those are really, really kind of the key things. So carpet's great. New carpet's wonderful. New laminate flooring, new hardwoods, awesome.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but in our environment, when insurance is so important, really understanding what you're buying. I mean, open the hood. Open the hood. Don't just kick the tires. Open the hood. See what you're buying, because you can get some some really negative responses from the insurance companies that you don't want to have to deal with.
And that goes back to that, what you mentioned. It's something that I would say 98% of the time everybody opts for that home inspection. But costs of buying a home are high, and some people elect to say, I'm going to save that $400 and not do it. But it sounds like the most important $400 that you can spend, because it can end up costing you a boatload down the road.
It can.
And I mean, I know that, I've been to tons of inspections, so I'm playing dumb just to ask, but you can, right? You can, when you're hiring that home inspector, you can say, listen, my main concerns on this are some of the things that I heard, from John is, what do the pipes look like? Age of the roof? What's the furnace? I mean, they're going to cover most of that anyway.
Yes.
But if you get a home inspection that doesn't mention any of that, you do have somebody there who, if you don't want to get in the crawl space, that's what they're getting paid to do, is to take a look. Right. You might as well make sure that they're telling you that, right?
Yeah. And understand too that a home inspection insurance companies are looking at the property from a different aspect. So, a home inspector, depending on the type of loan and some of the requirements that the loan may have. So a VA loan, for instance, is going to have some, maybe some different things that the standard of the home needs to meet in order to.
Well, hold on though. But you're talking appraisal. I'm talking home inspector.
No, yeah, right. So, but even on a home inspection, so the insurance company is going to look at things differently than necessarily a home inspector. So a home inspector may climb up on the roof and take a look at it and say, right, hey, I think, there's some hail damage here. You need to call, you might not need to contact your insurance agent.
See if it's insurable roof, right?
Right. And, but a lot of them aren't going to put themselves out there and say it's insurable or not. For good reason.
I don't even think they can, right?
Yeah, because the insurance companies have different thresholds for repair versus replacement and those sorts of things. They have different tolerances for what they'll accept on a roof. But if you see that they're asking you to do that, first understand that the homeowner's insurance company is not going to send somebody out to inspect that property prior to you purchasing the policy. So if you're trying to get a homeowner's, policy, you can't just call them and say, hey, we're thinking about, purchasing a policy with you guys. Can you come out and inspect this house? It will not happen. So partnering with a licensed roofer, and that's another thing these home inspections are going to state is, contact a roofer, contact your insurance, and have them take a look at it. And so, understanding that up front is really important. And what we're finding a lot of times in Oklahoma is that roof does have pre-existing hail damage on it. And so, if your realtor as an advocate for you is typically going to say, hey, look, if we can't insure this, or if they're saying that this roof needs to be replaced, well, maybe that's something that the current homeowner is maybe have to file a claim for. Get that.
And I've seen that happen, and it works out really well. I mean,
it does.
It doesn't work out for them making that claim and then moving on to their next home. But hey, you can't sell somebody a damaged roof home. You know what I mean? So
no, yeah. So it happens all the time. I mean, it happens all of the time where the inspector comes out, catches that issue. A lot of times I'm sending out, a roofer that I have a partnership with, send them out, take a look at it. And if they come back and say, hey, John, this roof needs to be replaced. Well, then, and the realtors as well, they have partnerships and relationships with roofing companies. They can come out, take a look at it. And if they come back and say, this thing definitely needs to be replaced. Well, that's a negotiation, that has to take place. but oftentimes it works out in favor of the buyer, and then you've got a brand new roof, which inevitably leads to a better premium because again, insurance companies like new roofs.
So, all right, man, this is perfect. So let's go back. Let's just do a quick little review of what we learned, because insurance is not something that I don't think a lot of people know a ton about. So, at the beginning we were talking about is why are the costs rising? And if I'm hearing you right, and feel free to tell me if I'm wrong, because there's a really solid chance I will be. But a lot of reasons, it depends on the state you're in. And if you're in a state like, like look at Florida recently, right? Hurricanes, flooding, things like that, how often they occur, how much it natural disasters basically. Uh, Oklahoma, Kansas, anywhere, tornadoes, huge, hail, things like that,
Those
wildfires.
are big ones. Wildfires is huge. A lot of people don't think of that.
Look at
They
California,
think of
man.
California, but look, we're a large flat state where we have annual droughts and high winds. I mean
Yeah.
that's a recipe for wildfire right there. Plus a lot of lightning and those sorts of things. So yeah,
So
it is a problem.
those things are a big deal. That's why you'll see from state to state, and we get this with, I deal with a lot of military clients, and so somebody coming from Georgia to here has a little sticker shock when it comes to their homeowners insurance.
Yeah,
And
sure.
the explanation is going to be, hey, look, man, you've been in Georgia, that's been great, Alabama, whatever. You come in here to the land of tornadoes, or you're going to Florida to the land of hurricanes, it's going to be different. And so those are huge factors. And then I think I heard you saying is basically is when you do have those, it's costing more money to fix your house. It costs more money to buy the wood, buy the siding, and to do whatever. That's costing more. And
Yep.
just like any big companies do, they're not going to take the hit. They're going to kind of trickle it down to us.
Yeah, they're going to pass
And
it on to the consumer for sure.
and
Yeah.
that's just how it is. Um, and then I know we were talking is one of the things that I know that a lot of people that I've kind of been trying to have a little conversation is what you just touched on is what things can we look for on this house to kind of minimize the likelihood of us getting a house that's going to come back with some whopping, homeowners quote, which is ask questions about it, right? How old is the roof? How old is the heating air?
Yep.
And get your home inspection, I think, was one of the main things. Is like we can ask about the roof, we can ask that, but once we get under contract, we do have a little bit of a time period in those contracts to allow us to get a home inspection. So make sure you do it quickly, and you're hiring this person, so find out, like you said, what are the pipes? What is the what was it? The
Yeah,
general
so roof,
all that.
heating, plumbing, electrical. Roof, heating, plumbing, electrical. Those are four key things that you need to understand on a prospective property. If it's new construction, that's
Yeah.
easy, but most
Yeah.
people aren't buying brand new houses. So
And then tell me if this is one I think that plays sometimes into it is some people when they're buying outside of town. Didn't you tell me that your location towards a fire department or a fire hydrant or those things, is that a thing for people that are maybe looking out in the
yeah,
country?
absolutely. So it's called fire protection, and the insurance companies use a scoring system. It's from 1 to 10,
Mm-hmm.
and they for a lot of carriers, if you are more than 5 miles from a full-time fire department, or
Uh-huh.
if you're greater than 1,000 feet from a fire hydrant, then you're going to
Okay.
be on the higher end of the fire protection spectrum. And if you get outside of 8, if you're in a 9 or a 10, there's a lot of carriers that do not have an appetite for that property. So you may be going under contract on a house where you have very limited options for getting homeowners insurance for that property.
And like you said, limited options means you're going to have to roll with maybe one, maybe two people, and then you're at their whatever they're going to give you,
Yep.
which is the other thing that you said that people can do is get out there and shop. And then let me ask you this, and I'm asking you this because I know the answer, but I want you to tell the answer to everybody is, um, I have a lot of people that I deal with, a lot of, veterans, and a lot of people are very, they want to stick with USAA. I've got all my cars with them and all that. So if what I'm hearing is if you don't love the quote you're getting from that person, because that's a singular company, right? You're going to get their rate.
Yep.
You may have to do a little breaking up with your insurance company if you want to get a good deal. And that means the shopping, right? Like you said, the shopping. So when somebody comes to, somebody like you at Cova, um, you're not just giving them a quote from one company. Tell me about the process with your company. Like, how does that work? Am I getting just one, or are you looking at multiple for me? How does that work?
Yeah. So the first thing that we kind of look at is, what is the age? What is the condition of this property? We try and get as much data as we possibly can, because right now there are companies, we have one company that if the house is older than 10 years, they won't insure it. So we know right off the bat, we're not going to use them. So
Yeah.
the more we know about that property, then we go through the process of, submitting quotes to as many carriers that will have an appetite for the home that you're purchasing.
So you can look
And
at multiple places. I can come to you and get
yeah,
multiples at once.
yes, yeah,
I gotcha. Okay.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
that's
We,
good.
we we're going to exhaust our efforts to try and find a home for your home, if you will. Try
Right.
and find a company that's going to be willing to insure it at a good premium, while without sacrificing coverage. Yeah.
So if I'm out there and I'm already doing all of this home buying, I've got my lender finally, I've found my realtor, and I've found my house. I'm doing a lot of work. Makes sense to somebody like yourself, where instead of me going to 20 different people, I can come to you and you say, hey, listen, I'm going to run this through 20, 30, 50, whatever it is, number of places to find the best place for you, and kind of just say, okay, I can feel good that I have in fact shopped without, because I mean, shopping doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to go to 15 different insurance agencies around town.
Right.
You just want to see what other companies. So if you have access to multiple companies in one place, then I can kind of let you do that heavy lifting for me. Is that about right?
Absolutely, and we take it another step too, because we work with lenders like yourself.
Mm-hmm.
eh, you know we want that home buyer to get into that house.
Yeah.
So if we're not, through our our resources and our partnerships with insurance companies, if we're not able to find something that's going to make sense for you, it's going to make sense for the loan, and ultimately put you in the home. Something that we also do is we will review the quotes that you've had from other carriers, and make some suggestions on if you need it lower, and we don't have a carrier that's able to provide a lower price point,
Right.
then we'll take a look at that, do an analysis, do an evaluation, provide some guidance, provide some advice on some things to do to maybe offset some of those costs, and put you in a better position. And if we see some blind spots, if we see some areas where you're not covered, you're not going to be protected, then we'll make some suggestions that way too. So at the end of the day, we want home buyers. We want people to be able to experience the benefits of home ownership, and if that comes at the cost of us maybe not being able to work with you, we'll at least try and provide you some guidance and some information that's useful for you going forward.
That's perfect, man. Well, I mean, we've been gone for a little bit, but we're back now trying to get some more information out to people. The Whale Podcast, Why Am I Listening? Those are all the reasons why we're listening today. So, John, I think you killed it. And I hope that everybody's going to be able to take that info and avoid some of those, those landmine houses that they're out looking for. So,
Yeah,
perfect
absolutely.
job, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks, brother.